Hey everyone, Emily here from the Youth Services Department at the Lynchburg Public Library. Thank you so much for joining us for our 7th and next to last summer STEAM session right here on our YouTube channel. We hope that you have enjoyed our summer STEAM programs so far, and we still have 2 exciting and fun programs left for you. Just a couple of reminders before we get started with today's math and art activity. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page as well as our website at lynchburgpubliclibrary.org for more information about all of our virtual programs for all ages, as well as for more information about our Read Squared summer reading program. As you track your reading with our Read Squared summer reading program, don't forget to also check out the bonus badges, which are under the Missions tab in your Read Squared account. You have probably accumulated some codes if you've been watching our virtual programs. If you input those codes, it could increase your odds of winning really cool prizes this summer. Today's STEAM activity combines art and math, and it's going to result in an awesome masterpiece called a tessellation. A tessellation occurs when you have a repeated shape and there are no gaps or white spaces in your piece of art. Are you guys ready to make a tessellation of your very own? If so, let's take a look at the materials you will need for this activity. For today's STEAM activity, you will need the following materials. Paper, the thicker the better. So if you have cardstock or construction paper, that's going to be even better than copy paper. A pencil, a ruler, tape such as Scotch tape, and colored pencils, crayons, or markers. Have you gathered all your materials for today's STEAM activity? Great! Before we get started, let's talk a little bit more about tessellations and M.C. Escher, the Dutch artist who is considered the father of modern tessellations. First, let's officially define tessellations. A tessellation is the covering of a plane using one or more geometric shapes, called tiles, with no overlaps and no gaps. Now, let's talk about M.C. Escher. M.C. Escher was a Dutch graphic artist who made mathematically inspired art, including tessellations. Let's take a look at some of his most famous tessellations. All right, so here is a photo of M.C. Escher, the late Dutch graphic artist who is considered the father of modern tessellations, and he lived from 1898 until 1972. And as you can see in this picture, he is hard at work on a really beautiful and complex piece of art that definitely looks mathematical as well. So this one is not a tessellation that he's working on in this photo, but it's still a very mathematically inspired piece of art. That was kind of his trademark. So let's take a look at a couple of his most famous tessellation pieces. First, we have Lizard, and he did this in 1942. Check out the complexity of that shape. So you guys aren't going to be making something quite this complicated today unless you want to. You can go for it. But check out that cool lizard shape and how he twists it in multiple directions, and there's still no gaps or overlaps. It's very impressive. I also love his use of color in this piece. And then we have one more, the Horseman. This was done in 1946, and I think this one is so cool looking. I love the use of color once again, and it almost looks like we just have a line of horsemen all in a row, and then every alternating row, they're going the opposite direction. And again, note the complexity of the shapes that he uses here. Definitely a super talented artist. All right, so now that we've looked at the master's work, let's go ahead and make our own tessellation creations. Let's go. All right, friends, for today's tessellation math and art STEAM activity, I'm going to show you the steps to making a creation like mine that has this particular shape of bird, but you are more than welcome to look online for more resources or to make your very own design using the principles that I'm about to show you with my bird art. But I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to make the tile for this particular shape and you can take it from there. You can either make a similar shape or you can do something different. It's totally up to you. This is just a jumping off point, if you will. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with today's activity. We're going to start. You're going to end up making a 3 by 3 inch square, and I've just made kind of a grid full of 3 by 3 inch squares right here on my copy paper. So it's, or actually my cardstock paper, sorry. It is okay if you are using copy paper, but as I mentioned earlier, the thicker the paper you use, the better, because you're going to be tracing this shape repeatedly onto your final product paper. So it's going to have to withstand a lot of tracing. So if your paper is a little bit thicker, it's going to hold up a little bit better. But you are more than welcome to use whatever paper you have on hand. So go ahead, as you can see, I've already made my 3 by 3 inch squares, but go ahead and use your paper. You can either make a whole grid, you could end up making multiple different shapes and doing multiple pieces of art. That's awesome. Or you can just make one square, or you can make a bunch just in case you happen to mess up. Not that that's really possible with this activity, but feel free to make one or more 3 inch squares using your ruler and a pencil. And go ahead and do that, and then we will cut out one of the squares and start assembling our bird shape. So go ahead and do that now. So once you have your square or squares all measured out and drawn on your piece of paper right here, you can go ahead and cut out one of those squares and we'll start assembling our bird shape. So go ahead and grab your scissors and cut out one of your 3 by 3 squares. All right, so once you have your square cut out, now is the time to take a look at my example here and see what we need to do to this shape to turn it into the bird shape that you see here. So what do you think we need to do? Where do we need to make cuts? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a cut that goes kind of like this, and then goes straight across, and then slants back up at an angle. And you can use your ruler for this. I'm just going to eyeball it, but you're more than welcome to use a ruler and try to get it exact. I just want to give you guys an idea of what to do. So you're going to make a diagonal cut, a straight across cut, and then another diagonal cut. And it does look a little bit different from my original piece of art, but I just want to show you guys the steps. And you end up with this piece on the top. Now don't get rid of the piece on the top because you're going to end up attaching that in a different spot on your original square. So what you're going to end up doing is attaching that with tape right here on the bottom. And can you see how that's already mimicking the shape? If you look at a single bird, you have to kind of look at single elements, how that's already kind of mimicking the shape here. We're only going to have one additional thing to add. Pretty cool, right? So now what you need to do is grab some tape. I'm using Scotch tape because you can cut it easily and it's easy to work with and it's clear, so you get to kind of see what you're doing better. And I'm actually going to kind of cut this in half to get a really thin piece. And it's okay if this part takes a little while. It can be a little frustrating working with such small pieces, but don't give up. Don't get discouraged. And you're just going to take your tape. Maybe I'll use the slightly bigger piece and try to line it up. And sometimes it's easier to kind of put the tape halfway on and then adhere your shape. It gives you a little bit more control. And just try to kind of line it up there like that. And then I'm going to tape the other side because again, you're going to be tracing. So your shape is going to have to withstand that tracing. Okay? So you should end up something like with something like this. And if you wanted, This kind of reminds me of like a little kitty cat space. And you could decorate it like a cat. If you wanted to stop here, that's totally fine. That's kind of a fun way to make a little cat shape. Look, that looks kind of like the ears, and you can make the face here. But if you would like to go ahead and finish the bird shape, what you're going to do is make another cut. Now, can you tell where you're going to make this cut? Right, you're going to make a cut right here. You're going to make like a little triangle, a cute triangle cut there. And it's going to end up being affixed right here at the top, and it's going to create the kind of face and beak of your bird. And as you can see, it kind of looks like this is just the body of the bird, like where the wing separates from the tail and the rest of the lower body. So it kind of comes together nicely. So now what you need to do is make your other cut. It doesn't matter exactly where it is, but just go ahead and make kind of an acute triangle cut. There we go. And as you can see, we have a little cutout shape right here. And this one is even more delicate and almost like harder to work with, so just don't get frustrated. And if you want to make it a little bit bigger, I can see that I've made this particular bird head a little smaller than I did in my original piece, but that's part of the fun of STEAM. You just play around and you can do things differently. There's really no right or wrong, but it might just take a little more finesse for me to attach. I'm going to get a super small piece of Scotch tape and hope for the best. All right, so now, it doesn't matter exactly where it's positioned, but you want it somewhat close to the edge there. All right, so you're going to attach it like that, and if you have some tape hanging off, you'll want to cut that, because when you're tracing, that would get in your way. But I am going to go ahead and put some more on the other side. It's good to put a little bit on each side just to reinforce what you're doing. And just kind of cut off the excess tape there. All right. And when you put the shape together, it might look a little bit rough. Mine certainly does. Apologies for that. But when you trace it, it really starts coming together nicely. And as you can see, my shape is a little bit different. But what you're going to do now is you can kind of just pick a point where you want to start tracing, and the rest of your masterpiece is going to form around that first tracing that you do. So you may end up with little segments. As you can see, I've got the very bottom of a bird right here. I have several whole birds. I've got just the top of a bird right here. So it's really cool. It's like if you were looking at a huge piece, it would just keep going forever. It's just a repeated shape with no overlaps and no gaps. So you're going to end up with some interesting iterations of your bird shape on your piece of art. And you can use any size paper you want for your final product. If you want one that's bigger than this, great. Smaller, that's also totally up to you. All right, so we would love to see your tessellation art, guys. Feel free to tag us in your Facebook photos or send us a message via Facebook Messenger. Just send it to the Lynchburg Public Library. Even if you do the birds just like I did, I would love to see, because everyone is going to have a unique spin on it. You might use different colors. You can use colored pencils, crayons, markers, decorate it however you want. Your birds may have different faces than mine. I love to see the variety, okay? So feel free to share your artwork with us. Would love to see if you end up using a different shape. You don't even have to make a recognizable shape. As long as you apply the logic and the mathematical prowess behind making that cut and then placing the cut piece that you cut off in a way that will allow the shape to be repeated with no gaps and no overlaps. All right, guys, have fun with this one. All right, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed today's Tessellation STEAM activity. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, if you'd like to share photos of your masterpiece with us, simply tag the Lynchburg Public Library in your Facebook photos, or send your photos to us via Facebook Messenger. We always love to see what you guys are working on. So we have one session of Summer STEAM left, and it will be released right here on our YouTube channel next Thursday at 10:30 a.m. And you won't want to miss it because it involves potions. So until then, don't forget to check out our website and Facebook page for updates, for information about our virtual programs, and for more information about Read Squared. And there might even be a code at the end of this video. You'll have to stay tuned. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time, guys. Bye!